evening. You're listening to The Last Days of Disco, the entire book, published by Orenda Books, produced by Into Creative, and read by me, the author, David F. Ross. This is episode 2. I was fucking kidding, for Christ's sake. You didn't need to spew all over the door. There's no way I'd have been letting you anywhere near my knob. I don't even care that you're a fucking bender. It'd still be like incest or something. Gary was enjoying taunting his younger brother. Although he could have done without it on this particular morning, Bobby was genuinely glad that his brother was home again. He could be a total cunt at times, but on the whole, he'd always looked out for Bobby. He'd often taken the full brunt of Harry's anger for things that were actually Bobby's fault. Bobby lifted his head away from his hands and looked around the room. He still felt as if part of a slow-motion replay of incidents that had happened earlier. He watched his elder brother's freckled and impressively muscular frame disappear into the adjacent kitchen. Outside, it was a beautifully crisp late winter morning, blinding low-level sun and sporadic vapour trails of breath from people out walking. The view from the dining table made Bobby feel slightly better. Regardless of how bad they are, hangovers eventually pass. He looked over to take in his parents' newly decorated living room with its smart wood chip wallpaper painted in Mongolia, as his mum Ethel had demanded. Bobby called his mum Mrs. Malaprop, and while the rest of the family found this highly amusing, the joke was lost on Ethel. As far back as Bobby could recall, his mum had always been a bit brittle. When he was little, there were regular tense arguments between his parents. Usually they involved Gary. They had become fewer in recent years, but her emotional fragility was the apparent legacy. Bobby looked intently at the picture of a small boy that was hanging above the 3-bar electric fire to the front of the room. It was a painting, but not an especially good one, and most certainly not an original. At least 10 other people Bobby knew had that painting positioned in a virtually identical location in their houses. Despite this, there was an undeniably hypnotic quality to the image. Years ago, when she first got it, Ethel had told her daughter that it was a painting of Gary when he was little. The track of a tear that wound its way down the chubby little cheeks came from large blue turned-down eyes just like Gary's. It was never explained why anybody had painted a picture of Gary while he was in a state of such distress, nor why his parents had framed it and hung it in a position of such prominence. Familiarity had rendered her mystification obsolete over the years, but neither Bobby nor his sister had ever been able to look at the picture without thinking about Gary, especially in the months after he had suddenly left home and headed for London. The crying boy bore no resemblance to other members of the Cassidy family, neither did Gary. Numerous family photographs were arranged around the principal room of the Cassidy family home. On the sideboard, on top of that bloody piano that Harry had rescued from the school where he now worked as a janitor, on the sills of the 2 windows that looked out onto the front and rear gardens, on the massive wooden cabinet that housed the television, for so long the dominant voice of the household. When it spoke, everyone listened. Gary appeared in none of these photographs. Bobby hadn't really thought about this before. Gary had always seemed to be generally absent, a bona fide black sheep. Now though, with him back home and a real air of détente finally existing between his brother and his father, Bobby found this absence from family events quite strange. The door of the kitchen opened and the tinny sound of soft cell drifted through it, followed by Gary. He was carrying a tray by its large wicker handles. Arranged carefully on the tray was, by Cassidy standards, an extraordinarily decent breakfast. A plate full of toast, carefully buttered and sliced diagonally, continental style. 2 boiled eggs, one already decapitated, sitting snugly in comedy egg cups. A pot of tea encased in one of Ethel's knitted and badly fitted woolen cosies, and 2 cups, one plain white and the other welcoming the drinker to Blackpool, made up the ensemble. Gary wasn't finished though. The giveaway smells of bacon and sliced sausage made this whole exercise even more impressive, considering Gary's former Olympian levels of laziness. Maybe the army had done him good after all. Bobby shuffled about uncomfortably in his seat. He had picked the one that faced the rest of the room only because the base of his back was still sore, and its solid canvas back was more appealing than the 4 hard-panelled chairs that sat around the circular table. "Some night, eh, boy?" said Gary, the lean, bare-chested Scots guardsman. "Don't ken, I can't fucking remember anything, and I really mean anything," said Bobby, still contemplating which parts of this greasy feast set before him might stay the course following consumption. "It's your 18th, fuck's sake, Bob. You're not supposed to remember anything. It's a well-known fact, like your stag do, or the 60s. Is it? Fuck. I don't remember the 60s because I was away, not because I was pissed. When did we go out?" Bobby tried to turn the focus to questions that would hopefully prompt small fragments of recollection to return. "Oh, about 9 in the morning," said Gary proudly, before adding, "On Friday." Bobby's face first recorded emotions of surprise, then shock, then shame, and finally, as Steve Wright wished everyone a pleasant Sunday from the kitchen, resignation. A whole day and night of Bobby's life had gone AWOL. He asked if they'd gone to the Kilmarnock Arts game on Saturday. Gary nodded, his soldier's mouth full of toasted equivalents. Bobby inquired if they'd gone to Casper's nightclub at the Cross. "Friday, and Saturday too," Gary replied. "Where the fuck did we stay on Friday night?" Bobby tentatively asked, not sure entirely if he was prepared for the answer. His head was now firmly back in his hands. "Picked up 3 wee lassies fae Gogson. Went back to theirs for a party, ken what I mean?" said Gary with a salacious wink. "What, just the 2 of us?" "No," said Gary. "Tom always with us. How can you not remember any of this?" Gary was suddenly aware that Bobby was staring transfixed at his left arm. He was particularly focused on the tattoo on its upper part, running from shoulder blade to just above the elbow. The dark blue ink on its pale canvas looked like a police badge, but with the words 2nd Battalion above the crest and Scots Guards below it. The crest lay over a bayonet that had a serpent coiled loosely around it. Sensing the question forming slowly in his brother's head, Gary stood up to break the spell. Bobby looked down at his bare feet, through the absurd glass dining table his mum had recently badgered Harry into buying. All the Cassidy males had simultaneously thought the same thing the first thing they saw it. A glass table? How can you rearrange your bows and give yourself occasional secret wee fiddle when you're sitting at a fucking glass table? Ethel's justification was that it would make the room appear much bigger than it was. Harry considered this to be a typically female attitude, looks over function. At this precise moment, though, the table's permeability was performing a valuable function. It permitted sight of a series of numbers written on Bobby's right foot. Whilst not opening an immediate portal into his lost weekend, it was nevertheless a clue, since on closer inspection it was obviously a phone number. With Gary playing the cunt, it was apparent that he was going to have to piece this mystery together himself. The front door opened and a full 30 seconds later closed again. Gary and Bobby stared at the closed door separating the entrance hall from the room they were in. It opened slowly, and before either could see him, Harry announced, "It's bloody freezing out there." Harry had returned from a walk to pick up the Sunday papers, a journey he took and enjoyed every Sunday morning, although this particular morning's jaunt had taken longer than normal. Harry had bumped into Stanley May, who had felt the need to impart his own second-hand knowledge of Harry's son's activities over the last 48 hours. "So you 2 clowns seem to have made a right arse of yourselves then." With these words from his father, Gary silently took his leave, pulling a Kilmarnock FC jersey from the radiator as he went. Harry watched him from the other end of the long, narrow room. Harry was of average height and stereotypical outline for a working-class male in his late 40s from the west of Scotland, but silhouetted against the bright sunlight from the window behind him, Bobby thought he looked like the Michelin Man. Harry nodded towards the other window behind Bobby, where wisps of smoke betrayed Gary's current location. "I suppose he was responsible." It was more statement than question. "Ugh, I don't know. I can't really remember much. I don't think I can blame Gary, though, no this time at least." "That'll make a change then," mumbled Harry as he unfolded the Sunday Mail in the comfort of his armchair. "Give him a break, Dad. He's been like a different guy since he came back from England." Harry did have to concede that the army seemed to have made a decent person out of Gary, and while he didn't quite extend to pride, Harry did now have a modest foundation of respect for his son. So anyway, Dad, he's away back to Wellington soon. I think maybe you should go to a pint with him. What do you think? It was unnerving Bobby to be talking to the back of his dad's balding head, but he continued nonetheless. Why don't you take him for the Masonic the next time you're going down? No response. He kens Stan and he kens Desi O'Neill too. It's not like he'd be sitting there like a spare part in the corner. Bobby still found it awkward to use foul or coarse language in front of his parents, unlike his best mate Joey Miller, who positively relished the opportunity. Is there something on the night? Still no response. The younger man sighed. Look, Bobby, just leave it, eh? Things are better with him and me. That's enough for just now. Harry was in no mood to expand. He put down his paper, got up, and went over to the television. Having flicked quickly through the 3 channels, he settled on Farming Outlook. Did you get me the Sunday Post, Harry? Ethel's wavering, high-pitched voice floated through the same door her husband's had 20 minutes earlier. Aye. There weren't going to be any long conversations involving the main man in the house this morning. Ethel strode towards the kitchen, pausing only to address Bobby. When did you two get in? God knows. Bobby was aware he'd need to get up from the chair soon or face a grilling, but he had a real concern that his legs wouldn't support him. Bobby, put a shirt on when you're at the table. This prompt from his mum was enough to make him move. More focused interrogation would surely follow if he didn't. Bobby, there's blood on my seat covers. Ethel had come back in from the kitchen and spotted a small red stain low down on the beige Hessian. It's not me, Mum, I'm no bleeding, proclaimed Bobby as he slowly spun round, trying to examine himself. What's that on your back? Right down low, there, said Ethel, squinting. I can't see anything. Where? Bobby was still pirouetting. It says something about a Hearse, said Ethel. Hang on, I need to go and get my glasses. Harry watched Ethel disappear upstairs to retrieve her specs from the bedside table and then got up to take a look, already suspecting the worst. You bloody idiot, you've got a fucking tattoo that says, I take it up the arse. Eh? Oh fuck, away you go. Bobby's shock at the tattoo being the source of his back pain made him temporarily forget to whom he was speaking. Fuck! Is that all it says? Hey, mind your language, and no, that's no everything. Below that there's a line saying, this way for a good time, and then there's an arrow pointing to the crack of your arse. For fuck's sake, Bobby, that's a real bloody tattoo. That's no washing off. Split between hunting Gary down and avoiding his mother's return, Bobby headed for the back door. Needless to say, his brother was long gone. Fucking bastard, Gary, mumbled Bobby as he pulled a white Adidas t-shirt from the line and pulled it on to cover the lightly bloodied artwork. It was bitterly cold and hung like frosted cardboard, having been left out overnight. Sadie Flanagan's at the door. She'll be there for ages, you're bloody lucky boy. She'll have forgotten by the time they're by blethering. Father and son sat on a damp timber bench. They stared out across the garden towards the school where Bobby intermittently showed his face as a 6th-year student, but where Harry went every weekday throughout term time and the odd Saturday. What are you doing with your life, son? Harry had posed this question many times to his middle child, mostly over the last 5 months, and always with no tangible reaction. Bobby shrugged. He was always irritated by this line of questioning. He'd just turned 18, the ink on the cards in the living room had barely dried. He just wanted to fanny about. When his dad used that term, it was with disdain. When Bobby said it to Joey Miller, it sounded aspirational. Joey was slightly younger than Bobby, not 18 until October. Joey could be really intense, and the lassies thought he was a bit strange, virgin on creepy. A lot of them called him Jeeves because he always seemed to be in Bobby's shadow, and that really irritated the both of them. But Bobby saw the other side. Joey was really witty, heavily into the music, and completely on the same wavelength as Bobby was. Joey wouldn't have gone to the Killie match. Bobby knew that much. Joey was a Rangers fan, but he'd at least grown up on the south side of Glasgow, so he was entitled to that. Killie was full of fucking old firm glory hunters, and Bobby hated all of them. What you thinking about after leaving? Bobby's protracted hangover made it feel like he was hearing his dad from underwater. It wasn't a good feeling. Are you listening to me? Harry shook his son's shoulder. Ugh, Dad, I don't know, Just what? You'll need to do well with your English this time if you're going to university after the summer. Bobby couldn't bring himself to admit that he'd virtually given up on the English higher. His prelim only a few weeks earlier had been a disaster. His mark had been of a level that only Norway's entrant for the Eurovision Song Contest would have considered acceptable. He'd concealed this from both parents so far, but truth was he was heading for expulsion. The Beak had already warned him twice that if he was asked to leave English, he'd be out of the school altogether. The situation also applied to Joey, although maths was his particular nemesis. Bobby was fully aware of the creek into which he was drifting, and also the paddle that he had dropped overboard about half a mile back. The last thing he had on his mind now was to jump in, swim back and retrieve it. Fuck that. If the waterfall was just around the bend, he'd continue just to drift towards it, lying back and soaking up some rays en route. Waterfalls are way more exciting than fucking creeks. Look, Dad, I'm sorted. Joe and I are going to start something up. Just don't ken what yet. Jesus Christ, Bobby, he's the same as you. If brains were dynamite, he wouldn't have enough to blow his nose. After he'd said this, Harry felt a bit guilty. Joey was undoubtedly clever. He used loads of big words that Harry had never heard before. Harry didn't mean that Joey was stupid. He meant that he was perhaps the most lazy, unmotivated person in the Northern Hemisphere. He just couldn't think of an appropriate gag to illustrate that. We were thinking about something to do with music, said Bobby, with enough optimism to inflect the tone. Any ideas then? Prompted Harry. Record shop? Studio work? A band? A&R? There was a softly sarcastic edge to Harry's promptings, but it was concealed enough to avoid his son's impaired sense detecting it. No, we can't play anything, announced Bobby, as if this was totally new information for the older man. We were thinking more along the lines of DJing. Harry held his embassy regal packet between thumb and forefinger of his left hand. He had no option. A couple of years ago, the other 3 digits had been sliced off by a loom in the BMK carpet factory where he had gone after leaving school. With his other hand, he pulled a cigarette carefully out the newly opened pack of 20. Bobby watched how effortlessly his damaged hand performed the lighting of the cigarette with a Swan Vesta. He genuinely admired his father for the way in which he'd coped since the accident. There had been no anger, no bitterness, simply an acceptance that it was a big pothole in life's bumpy road that he hadn't been able to swerve. Initially, Bobby hadn't been too enamoured, but his dad's only offer of employment following his recuperation had been as a janitor at the school that Bobby actually had gone to. But Harry was a well-known and well-liked guy around New Farmloch, and as a consequence, nobody took the piss. In fact, given the number of Mitre 5 footballs Harry had brought home during the last few years, Bobby had to concede that the arrangement had some advantages. Today was just about to be one of those occasions where the same held true. Well, if you're serious about it, there's a note on the staff room notice board, said Harry, following a long period of making his little stick of heaven vanish into perfectly constructed smoke rings. Saying what? A suddenly attentive Bobby turned for the first time to look directly at Harry. A wee lassie's looking for a mobile disco for an 18th birthday party. Where? Asked Bobby. I tell you, it's on the notice board and the teach. No, where's the party? Initial exasperation diminished as Bobby realised his dad was gently pulling his leg. The Sandra Ann, in about 3 weeks' time. Her name's Lizzie. She's not at school, so you might need to be quick. She's probably stuck the same note up on all these other notice boards too. There's a phone number at the bottom. There was another pause in the conversation as Harry could almost visualise the wee technicians in Bobby's overheated brain, working hard to compute the information he'd just been given. Harry laughed as Bobby's eyes darted backwards and forwards. He pondered the idea of pressing Bobby's nose to see if a piece of ticker paper would come out of his mouth with the words, "Get number, please," written on it. "Will I get you the number then?" said Harry, jumping ahead. Aye, I think so. Bobby had moved on to rehearsing the conversation he would have with Joey later that afternoon. The brain trust techies had also started formulating some pertinent questions of their own. Where are you getting the equipment? Do you have enough records? What about lights? A van? A driver? The wee bastards were asking too many questions now. They were supposed to be coming up with the fucking answers. That was their job. Bobby got up and headed for the stairs. He was shivering a fair bit, having just realised how long he'd been outside in the January air of a Scottish morning. He was planning to go and run a hot bath and then get ready and go and get Joy, probably contact Hamish May as well. Although he did think it may have been better to have some more concrete to tell them. He should call this Lizzie and get the details, make sure the job was actually still available. There was a lot to be done, and he had to acknowledge feeling a lot more vibrant than he had half an hour ago. Even Lemmy's mob had fucked off. "Hello, Bobby, son." Mrs. Flanagan's voice was as deep as a coming-up coal mine and twice as dangerous. "I see you had yourself a wee time last night. Spray painting your name on the side of Viviani's shop wall." Ethel turned to look at Bobby, her mouth partly open. "Oh, I'm sorry. Have I said too much?" Mrs. Flanagan put her hand over her mouth theatrically. "Old fucking cow," thought Bobby as he edged past his tut-tutting mother and headed for the comparative safety of the bathroom. "There was something else I wanted to talk to you about, Bobby, but I can't remember what though." Bobby and his dad were often concerned about Ethel's increasing forgetfulness, but today, and with the blood not yet starting to seep through Gary's white t-shirt, he was grateful for it. When Bobby got to the top of the stairs, he could hear the Sunday morning sound of the Human League coming from the small transistor radio, a sure sign that his sister had taken up residence in the bathroom. He'd be going nowhere soon. Bobby stealthily moved back down the stairs past his glowering mum, an old bag Flanagan, who, just to rub it in, said a second cheery, "Oh, hello, Bobby, son." "Rotten hell, you piss-stained old cunt," he thought. Bobby hunted for the telephone. They'd recently bought a new mobile handset, which was absolutely fucking brilliant. It didn't have much of a range, and at the size of a brick, it was bigger than the Bakelite one it had replaced. But with the aerial fully extended, you didn't have to sit out in the hall or in the same room as everybody else when phoning your pals. He inclined his foot forward far enough to see the slightly faded number. After 5 rings, a voice hoarser than old smelly cunt responded. "Hello, hello." The voice said this with such timing that it was all Bobby could do to avoid replying, "We are the Billy Boys." He didn't, and the sandpaper sound snapped back at him. "Hello, who the fuck is this?" I'm Bobby Cassidy, who's this?" "You phoned me, you cunt." "Aye, but I think I might have been given the wrong number." "I'm Fanny frickin' Duncan." I'm going to say that again, actually, I tripped over that. Apologies. Take 2. I'm Franny fucking Duncan. Now what do you want? I'm in my fucking scratcher." Franny Duncan, Jesus Christ. What was he doing with Franny Duncan's number written on his foot? Bobby's brainiacs were running about in a panic. Words like gangster, dealer, doings, big, fat and bastard all ricocheted around like the steel balls in a multiplayer pinball game. I'm thinking of becoming a DJ." Bobby stumbled over the words, well too aware that he'd already volunteered his name. "For fuck's sake, phone back later on about 4. Ask for Hobnail, he'll sort you out." Click. The phone flatlined, and with a constant droning sound. Bobby stared at it for a few seconds. Hobnail? Was that a fucking code word? Along with all those other words that sprang to mind when thinking of Fat Franny Duncan came another 2, mobile and DJ. It was a big risk, but at least Franny Duncan would know where to get equipment, and he might even have some for hire. Bobby Cassidy had taken one wee step back from the edge. Thank you. Good night, folks. Stay safe, take care, and we'll see you again tomorrow night with episode 3.